The stagecoach rolled through the canyon dust like a wounded beast, its wheels groaning against the dry wind. Silver Creek shimmered ahead, a tired settlement clinging to life under the weight of its secrets. When the coach stopped before the general store, silence fell across the street.
Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We've got more powerful stories coming every single day, and you don't want to miss them. Now, let's begin.
A woman stepped down, her black veil whipping against the wind. Beneath it, Clara Dane's face was pale, composed, but her hands trembled as she held the handle of a weathered trunk. She wore mourning black, the kind that never let you forget the dead. Whispers slithered through the crowd. "Is that her? The widowed Dane woman. Thought she'd left the territory. Family sent her down here. Punishment, I heard." Clara ignored them all. Her eyes swept the horizon, past the cracked storefronts, the leaning saloon, the distant hills where the land turned red as rust. There, at the far edge, a man sat astride a horse. Caleb Cross. Broad-shouldered, rough-bearded, eyes like thunderclouds. He watched her with a calm that chilled and stirred her at once. The sheriff cleared his throat beside her. "Mrs. Dane, the wagon'll take you up to Devil's Run come morning. You sure you know what you're getting into?" She met his gaze through the veil. "I was sent here, Sheriff. I don't suppose knowing matters anymore." As the sun bled out behind the ridge, a single tumbleweed crossed between them. Her past and his fate carried on the same wind. And for the first time since the fire, Clara felt the burn of something that wasn't fear, but warning. Morning broke sharp and cold, the kind that bit through cloth and bone. The sheriff's wagon creaked up the ridge road, carrying Clara Dane toward Devil's Run. A ranch whispered about like a graveyard. The land stretched wide and empty, scarred by drought and old grudges. When they reached the gates, a man stepped from the corral, Caleb Cross. Dust clung to his shoulders, sunlight cutting hard lines across his face. He looked like the land itself, worn, fierce, unyielding. The sheriff cleared his throat. "Brought the lady, as arranged by Mr. Elias Dane." He handed Caleb a folded letter sealed in red wax. Caleb's jaw tightened as he read. "A marriage contract." His voice was gravel. "That old viper thinks he can buy my silence with a woman?" Clara stood still, veil lifted just enough to meet his eyes. "I didn't ask for this," she said softly. "But they said if I refused, there'd be consequences." Caleb laughed, low and bitter. "Consequences? For who? You or them?" She looked away. "Both, I suppose." For a long moment, only the wind spoke between them. Then Caleb crushed the letter in his fist and tossed it into the dust. "You'll stay here till I decide what to do with you. But don't mistake this for a welcome." Clara nodded, lifting her chin despite the sting of his words. "I've had enough welcomes to last a lifetime." As she stepped past him into the shadow of Devil's Run, the sheriff tipped his hat and rode off, leaving two strangers bound by vengeance neither yet understood. From the ridge, vultures circled in slow, patient spirals. Something in the air promised that punishment had only just begun. The wind at Devil's Run never rested. It moaned through the canyons and rattled the loose boards of the ranch house like a ghost too stubborn to move on. Clara Dane rose before dawn, the horizon still painted in ash-gray light, Her black dress hung heavy with dust, her hands raw from work she didn't know how to do, but refused to fail at. Caleb Cross watched from the porch, arms crossed. She moved through the yard with stiff grace, fetching water, scattering grain, tending the horses that eyed her with skittish distrust. She spoke to them softly, as though taming herself through them. When she stumbled carrying a pail, Caleb stepped forward. "You'll blister your hands clean through," he muttered. She didn't look up. "Blisters heal. Some things don't." The words hung between them like smoke. That night, thunder rolled over the plains. Inside, Clara lit a single lamp, its glow soft against the cracked walls. Caleb sat across from her, sharpening a knife, eyes half-shadowed. "You're not built for this land," he said finally. She met his gaze, unflinching. "The land doesn't have to like me. I only need it to forget me." Later, when the storm broke, Caleb thought he heard her crying in the dark, whispering a man's name he didn't recognize. But come morning, she was already outside, veil pinned tight, feeding the horses as if nothing had happened. And for the first time, he wondered if the punishment sent to his doorstep might be hiding something far more dangerous than grief.
If you're still watching at this point, I know you're hooked. Go to the comments, rate this story out of 10, and tell us your favorite part so far. Smash that like button and let us know. Now, let's continue.
The storm had passed, but the air still smelled of rain and smoke. Clara worked quietly, mending a torn saddle strap beside the corral. The morning sun caught in her hair, turning strands of black to ember red. For a moment, she almost looked alive again. Until Maisie Tompkins, the town innkeeper, rode up the trail. "Brought you supplies from Silver Creek," Maisie called, her eyes sharp with curiosity. "Heard tell you're settling in fine at Devil's Run." She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Never thought I'd see you here, Mrs. Dane. Not after that fire." Clara froze. The leather slipped from her hands. "What did you hear?" Maisie smirked, the kind that carried pity and poison. "Only that your husband didn't die easy. Some folks say he was trapped inside while you watched." Before Clara could reply, Caleb appeared, expression dark. "You've said enough, Maisie." His tone cut clean as a knife. The woman swallowed, tipped her hat, and left. When the dust settled, Clara was trembling. "They'll never stop whispering," she murmured. Caleb studied her. "You could tell me what really happened." She met his gaze, eyes glossy with memory. "The truth won't change what they've already buried." That night, Caleb found her sitting by the fireplace, staring into the flames as if trying to read something written there. Her face flickered between light and shadow, grief and guilt. "Fire's got a way of remembering things," he said softly. Her voice was barely a whisper. "So do I." And as the fire crackled, Caleb realized whatever she'd escaped, it hadn't finished burning yet. Night fell heavy over Devil's Run, thunder muttering over the distant ridge. The ranch lay cloaked in darkness, save for the faint flicker of a lantern swaying in the barn. Caleb Cross pushed the door open and found Clara struggling to saddle one of the horses. Rain dripped from her hair, her breath coming hard. "You planning to ride out in a storm?" His voice was low, dangerous. "I can't stay here," she whispered. "Not when every shadow feels like it remembers me." He stepped closer, boots sinking into the mud. "You think the past runs slower in the rain? You'll drown before you get a mile." She turned on him, eyes bright with desperation. "You don't know what it is to be punished for surviving." For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then Caleb reached for the bridle in her hands, his fingers brushing hers, calloused meeting delicate, both trembling. "You think you're the only one with ghosts?" he murmured. She flinched but didn't pull away. "Yours don't wear my husband's name." Lightning split the sky, and in the flash Caleb saw it. The terror in her face, the exhaustion, the kind of sorrow that eats through the soul. Slowly he lowered the reins. "You stay. Tonight at least." As she nodded, a gold glint caught his eye, something half buried in her saddlebag. He reached for it once she'd gone. A Dane family ring, polished and new. Caleb's hand tightened around it, jaw set. Whatever she was running from wasn't done chasing her, and for the first time in years he felt the old rage rising, the kind that burned hotter than lightning and twice as fast. 2 days after the storm, Devil's Run lay quiet beneath a sky the color of steel. Clara was hanging linens when a rider appeared on the ridge, a man in a fine coat, dust-streaked but proud. He carried a leather satchel stamped with the Dane crest. Caleb met him halfway to the gate. "State your business." The rider dismounted, eyes darting toward Clara. "Letter from Mr. Elias Dane, for Mrs. Dane." Caleb's jaw tensed. "I'll take it." The messenger hesitated but handed it over, then spurred his horse back down the trail without another word. Caleb waited until the dust settled, then broke the seal. Inside lay a short note and a printed bounty notice. "Wanted for murder, Clara Dane. Reward, $5,000. The signature beneath it was Elias Dane's. Caleb felt the breath leave him. He glanced toward the house, where Clara stood in sunlight, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, unaware that her own family had marked her for death. That night, as she served him coffee in silence, he studied her face, searching for guilt, for truth, for anything. She caught his stare. "Something wrong?" she asked softly. He forced a tight smile. "No, just thinking." Outside, coyotes howled across the canyon, and Caleb tucked the bounty deep into his coat pocket, knowing that whatever she'd done, the real danger had just found them both. Moonlight spilled silver over Devil's Run, softening the harsh lines of the land. The night was still, too still, save for the slow creak of the barn door. Clara stood inside, running a brush through the black stallion's mane, whispering softly to calm it. The horse huffed, ears twitching, and she smiled faintly. It was the first peace she'd known in months. Behind her, Caleb stepped from the shadows. "He only lets you near him," he said quietly. "Used to throw every hand I hired." She turned, startled, hand to her chest. "Maybe he knows I'm not afraid of broken things." Caleb's eyes lingered on her, the curve of her jaw, the steadiness beneath her sadness. "You should be," he said, though the words came out rough, uncertain. They stood inches apart, silence humming between them. Then, drawn by something neither could stop, he reached up and brushed the edge of her veil aside. Her breath caught. His thumb grazed her cheek, and for the first time she didn't pull away. When he kissed her, it wasn't gentle. It was desperate, raw, the meeting of two souls starved for warmth. She broke away first, trembling. From beneath her bodice, she drew a small gold locket, pressing it into his palm. Inside was a burned photograph, a man's half-scorched face beside a child's. "That's my husband," she whispered, "and the boy he never claimed." Caleb stared at the photo, his throat tightening. The boy's eyes, wide, dark, familiar, mirrored his own. Clara's voice cracked. "Now you see why they sent me here." The night wind howled through the barn as Caleb looked at her, realization sinking deep. She wasn't just his punishment. She was the secret his enemies had buried.
If you're enjoying this story right now, subscribe. And don't forget to give this video a like.
Morning came hard and gray. Caleb rode into Silver Creek, the burned photograph heavy in his pocket. He needed answers, and only one man could give them. Sheriff Abel Crow, an old friend turned wary stranger. Inside the sheriff's office, dust motes floated in the thin light. Crow poured whiskey, eyes narrowing when he saw the picture. "Where'd you get this, Caleb?" "From her," Caleb said. "Clara Dane. She says the man was her husband, Luke Dane." Crow's brow furrowed. "Luke was trouble. Ran horses, stole guns, and he didn't do it alone. Used your name, your old brand, to move them across state lines." Caleb went still. "You're saying he framed you, yeah. And when it fell apart, his own father burned the evidence, and him with it." Crow sighed. "That woman you've got up there, she's the only one who knows the truth. That's why Elias wants her gone." Caleb's pulse pounded. He'd been a pawn all along. His ruin, her exile, all crafted by the same viper. He turned for the door, voice like gravel. "If the Danes want to bury her, they'll have to go through me." Outside, the wind carried dust and thunder down the road to Devil's Run. Caleb mounted up and spurred hard, unaware that someone was already waiting there, and that Clara's past was about to ride straight through their gate. The sun was barely up when Caleb crested the ridge back to Devil's Run. A strange quiet met him. No smoke from the chimney, no clatter of the barn. His gut tightened. He kicked his horse forward. The front door hung open. Inside, chairs were overturned, a lamp shattered. A dark smear streaked across the floorboards. Blood. "Clara!" His voice tore through the stillness. Only the echo answered. He found Jonah Riker, his ranch hand, slumped against the wall, face bruised and bleeding. Jonah coughed, trying to speak. "They came. 3 men. Said they was sent by Elias Dane. Took her. Headed east." Caleb gripped his shoulder. "Did you go willing?" Jonah's gaze flickered. "Left this. Said you'd understand." He handed him a gold locket, its clasp broken. Inside, scratched into the metal with something sharp, were the words, "They know the truth." Caleb's hand trembled around it. He turned toward the open doorway where the desert wind whipped through the empty house like a curse. For a long moment he said nothing, just stared at the horizon where dust clouds rose like ghosts. Then he strapped on his gun belt. Jonah croaked weakly, "What are you going to do?" Caleb's voice was low, cold as iron. "Bring her back, or bury every Dane that stands in my way." He swung into the saddle, the storm building behind him, and rode into the rising dawn, a man chasing vengeance through fire. By nightfall, Caleb Cross rode hard into Silver Creek, his horse lathered, eyes burning with fury. The Dane estate rose from the dust like a fortress, white pillars gleaming under the moon, guards posted along the veranda. He didn't slow. Gunfire cracked the air as he charged the front gates. Bullets tore through wood and glass, but he rode straight through the storm. When the smoke cleared, he stood in the foyer, revolver raised. Elias Dane emerged from the shadows, calm as a viper. "I wondered when you'd come, Cross. Always were a fool for a woman." Caleb's voice was ragged. "Where is she?" Elias smiled thinly. "She's no prisoner. She came home to confess." Two men dragged Clara into the room, wrists bound, face bruised but defiant. She met Caleb's eyes, shaking her head. "Don't do this," she whispered. "They'll kill you." Caleb aimed at Elias. "Not before I find out what you did to her." The old man chuckled. "I did what was necessary. She knows what her silence costs." The air thickened. Caleb's finger tightened on the trigger, but Clara stepped forward, voice breaking. "Please, Caleb, if you love me, go." Elias's smirk deepened. "Ah, so you told him about the fire and about Luke." Caleb froze, the word fire ringing through him like thunder. In that moment, he realized everything, the marriage, the lies, the bounty, had led back to one secret still smoldering in her eyes. The night exploded into chaos. Clara tore free from the guards as Elias Dane barked orders. The estate groaned under the crack of gunfire. Lanterns toppled, curtains caught flame. Smoke coiled up the staircase like a serpent remembering its path. "Tell him, Clara!" Elias shouted through the haze. "Tell him what you did to my son!" She turned to Caleb, tears carving paths through the soot. "Luke tried to kill me," she gasped. "He found out the child wasn't his. It was yours." The world tilted. Caleb staggered back. "Mine?" Clara nodded, trembling. "He came with the pistol, drunk and screaming. I fought back. The lamp fell, the fire spread. But Elias lit the rest. He wanted Luke gone, and me silenced." Elias fired. The bullet tore through Caleb's shoulder, spinning him to the floor. Clara screamed, grabbing his gun and firing back. The old man fell, clutching his chest, hatred still burning in his eyes. Flames raced along the drapes, devouring the walls. Clara knelt beside Caleb, pressing her hands against his wound. "You can't leave me," she whispered, choking on smoke. He touched her face weakly. "Should have known you were never my punishment. You were my saving." She dragged him through the hall as the roof began to collapse. Behind them, the house that had birthed their curse burned like judgment, the past finally turning to ash. Dawn broke soft and gold across the blackened valley. The Dane estate was gone. Nothing left but smoldering timbers and the echo of old sins. Out beyond the ruins, on the edge of Devil's Run, a new fire smoked gently in the hearth of a rebuilt cabin. Clara stood in the doorway, hair loose, veil long abandoned. Her hands were rough now, her eyes clear. The wind carried the scent of ash and wild sage, the smell of something ending and something being born. Behind her, Caleb stirred in the bed, his shoulder bound in fresh bandages. He still moved stiffly, but the fire in him had turned from rage to something steadier. When he spoke, his voice was soft, raw. "Reckon we finally put the past in the ground." Clara looked back at him, a faint smile ghosting her lips. "It burned itself there long ago, We just stayed to watch." He reached for her hand, rough fingers tracing the ring she now wore, his, not the Dane crest. "You could still leave," he murmured. She shook her head, eyes shining. "They sent me here as punishment, Caleb. But you were the treasure I never thought I'd find." Outside, the black stallion Ash lifted its head, mane glinting in the sun. Clara stepped onto the porch beside him, breathing in the clean air of morning. The wind swept across Devil's Run, scattering the last of the Dane ashes into the endless sky, taking with it the lies, the pain, and every name that had once chained them both. They had been forged in fire, and what survived was love. Years later, travelers spoke of a ranch beyond the Red Ridge where a scarred man and a dark-haired woman lived quiet and free. Some said the land itself had once burned there, and love had risen from its ashes. No one remembered the Danes anymore. Only the name Devil's Run, whispered with a kind of reverence, the place where punishment became a promise kept.
Thank you for watching till the end. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. We'll be dropping brand new powerful stories every single day. See you on the next one.